Coming up on this episode of Tom Talks Rubbish.
With all due respect, Tom, we are never going to be equal because there's certain things that we can't. There's certain things that I can't do, that Dom can't do, that you can't do, that
Mm.
other people can do. So we're never going to be equal in a certain sense, but we just have to do the best that we can.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Tom Talks Rubbish, and stand back for another conversation. And today I'm joined by two of my very good friends in this space, Anthony from the Anthony podcast, and Dom Smith from Give Me a Whole Yeah, Wrestle Spear, etc. So we're here to talk about disability as a wrestling fan, guys, and disability in content creation. So welcome back on the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having us, Tom.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Yeah, it's good to be back.
So we've talked about the first time that you guys discovered wrestling a lot, but do you remember the first time that you both went to a wrestling show? If you've both been to shows at all?
Well,
Yeah. Go on, Anthony, you go first.
Yeah.
my first ever live event was in 2005. Within 2005, the sh the show where Eddie turned on Ray.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
Wow. I like that. I really like that. What about you, Dom?
Yeah, I was actually recalling this the other day. I went to a house show at Hull Ice Arena in 1994. I saw Bret Hart and The Undertaker in Hull, East Yorkshire. There's a story out there that The Undertaker went out to some casinos in Hull, but the less said about that, the better, apparently, after that show. But yeah, my dad took me to see them. It was great. I got some Bret Hart glasses. It was wonderful. I had a school teacher that was really into wrestling at the time, and she went as well. It was a really cool memory. And then yeah, I've been to a few wrestling shows since then, obviously working as
Mm.
media and as a fan. So yeah, but that is my first one. Yeah.
Sorry, mate.
I've I've just realised it's important to make a slight amendment to what I said. It wasn't the full heel turn, but they were planting the seed for it.
Ah, okay. So do you guys remember like any different at that point, do you remember sort of looking around and going, I'm not the same as these people, if that makes sense? Whether it be your experiences of where you're sitting, things like that as a fan.
Sorry, Tom. At the
No, you
time,
go first.
At the time, I was really young, so I probably didn't have that. I probably didn't have that mindset at the time. But
Hmm.
obviously, obviously, you can tell because you're sitting in a different position.
What about you, Dom?
Yeah, man, I had a kind of a childlike, wonder. So a lot of that stuff I didn't notice as much as I do today.
Hmm.
Obviously, I still, we still have the same things where people obviously are looking at us and, you feel different. But back then I had a childlike kind of enthusiasm. So I didn't notice it as much. I was just happy to be there, happy to be out with my dad. My dad had made the effort to take me there, which was really, really cool because it wasn't his thing. My dad's never been into wrestling at all. So that was just a really nice moment for us. And I kind of got lost in that. So I didn't really, and that's kind of what I remember. I don't tend to focus on because obviously people stare at me pretty much every day. I
Yeah.
don't tend to focus on that. Only maybe when I go to the gym or something is when I notice it if people are being particularly condescending. But, back then, yeah, very, very, I didn't really notice it as much.
I
Mm.
think Can you remember your first live event, Tom? If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, so I believe it or not, guys, and I really I'm a bit low on the totem pole, I guess, because I've only ever been to indie shows. I've never actually been to a WWE show or AEW show live yet.
Mate, that's not low on the totem pole. You're a real wrestling fan. You're
Mm,
actually, you arguably, you're a better wrestling fan than all of us because you've been to the indie shows. You're supporting, grassroots wrestling and not the global corporations. So I just wanted to shoehorn that in there. Carry
that's
on. Tell me
true. I
about the
didn't
indie
think of
shows.
it that way. But like, there's a company where my previous living situation was. I know they tour all over the UK, but WrestleForce. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them.
No, I've never heard of them. No.
But they tend to tour. They do like what the Americans would call high school gym sort of shows. Because I've actually been to a show in a school before. So that was my first memory. I've said to Dom a few times that WWE and AEW are still on the bucket list somehow.
I I've never been to a well actually I haven't been to many independent shows. I think I've been to one when I was really young, but I haven't been to any
Mm,
recent ones.
mm. Independent shows are a blast. I don't know if you've been to any, Dom, but they are really fun, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are fun. I mean, to be honest, I've there's a few places in the north that I really want to go to. Places like True Grit, I really want to check out. Progress, of course, down south. I know they do stuff in Manchester.
Mm.
So there's some incredible organisations out there. In Yorkshire and in the wider UK. Obviously, we have NGW. New Generation Wrestling, local to East Yorkshire. So, there's wrestling everywhere, guys. So go check
Oh
it out.
yeah.
Definitely go check it
I've
out. Go and support your local promotion.
I've seen videos, so maybe I need to give it a try. Maybe I need to give it a try.
Definitely, man. So with the sort of we talked about like, have you ever been to a show? Maybe this is more of a Don question as he's done indie shows, and you're like, you said this had wheelchair access, but like you've got there and it's like, yeah, no, that's not gonna work for me, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, obviously, I go to a lot of music events as well, pubs,
Mm,
bars, things like that. So small music events too. So again, I think it's an attitude thing. Not a lot of these smaller venues are accessible. I think
mm,
if you go to a school gym and you go to a school, you're going to have a different experience because it's their job and it's in their best interest to be accessible. So if I've ever been to a space like that, I have found accessibility because again, they're working with young people, they're working with school children maybe with disabilities. So there is ramps and things like that into the building, etc. It's when I'm doing music and doing gigs with bands that's when
mm,
I find the challenge is sort of clambering on stages, as we've talked about before. But for me, if there is a sort of an obstacle, I will try, and this is just for me. Obviously, not everybody has the privilege and luxury of being able to think like this. I tend to try it. Well, how am I going to get up these stairs? How am I going to
mm.
do this? Let's figure out a way to do it. And very, I'm trying to think of, I can't think of a space that's beaten me yet. Maybe the catacombs in Paris when I tried to get down there. That I was
Oh
not,
yeah.
not doing that. But yeah, aside from that, I usually, as it stands, I usually find a way to figure it out to get in and find a seat. And people tend to be very accommodating. They
That's
might
the other
not at
thing,
first,
yeah.
yeah, they might not at first be sure how to help you, but if you try and engage with people,
Yeah.
people are generally quite helpful, I would say.
Mm, mm. What about you, Anthony, when you've been to like WWE shows?
But, but obviously it's normally like a somewhat big arena. The access is normally pretty good. Because obviously they have people that will take your tickets and show you where to go at. But, in terms of moving around the arena, it can be a bit of pain in the backside. Because obviously, so, some people are just some people just don't think like what they're doing, and there was sometimes just walk in front of you without realizing. So it
Mm,
can be so it can be a bit annoying. it can be a bit annoying in that sense,
Mm,
but in terms of in terms of the actual workers, they're normally pretty good.
mm. What about you, Dom? Like when they do media, how accommodating are like? And you haven't done an AEW media scrum yet, have
I,
you?
I have, yeah.
Oh, you have, haven't you?
Yeah, I have.
How
Yeah, I have.
accommodating are?
Sam got in trouble with Tony Khan, if you remember.
Oh, the Taz thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I forgot about
Um,
that.
yeah, no, yeah, we have. Fine. I'm the only guy in those rooms with a disability, so I
Mm,
just have to make it work. They're all upstairs, downstairs. So it's either go down the stairs, get up the stairs, or don't do it. So usually the WWE ones are in hotels, so
mm,
the WWE ones are pretty accessible. Again, hotels have to be. The AEW ones, the ones I've done are the one I've done, and then obviously I've done media with them before, but it's usually been like this.
mm,
The event one I did was down some stairs, and in the basement of I think the O2 Arena,
mm.
but in London. But yeah, I mean the WWE ones they're very accommodating. There's a lot of people. It's a big machine, so they're like, "Can we get you a seat?" Things like that. But then if I got a seat, I ended up there's photos out there of me interviewing Liv Morgan and all these other people, Finn Balor, Damian Priest. Now Damian Priest is a big dude,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
if I'd
yeah.
sat down in a chair, it would be, I have to hold it up like this anyway. I have to hold my
Mm,
microphone up like this anyway. So for me, I kind of have in those settings I have to work with them. And I have to push myself, and it's usually very tiring. Obviously, going up
mm,
and downstairs is not fun for anybody, but yeah, it certainly takes it out of me. So I would say, from an accessibility standpoint, I'm the only guy typically I've been the only guy in the room with a
mm.
disability. So they're not used to that, and so I just have to get it done. And usually I want to give a shout out to the other people in the media scrums, Scott Felstead from Muscle and Fitness. Obviously, Alistair McGeorge, who you've spoken to,
Mm.
from Metro, very supportive of me. And they always usually stay with me or walk with me or give me a hand, you know what I mean, if I need. So there's a lot of really nice people in the media space that are very supportive as well. And I do want to thank, if anybody on those media teams for WWE and AEW comes across this video, I do want to thank them for being supportive. But again, there's only so much you can do in those spaces when
Yeah.
everyone else is able-bodied rushing up and downstairs. So just kind of have to make it work in those settings.
You mentioned something quite interesting there, Dom, that obviously you can get up and downstairs and walk, for lack of a better phrase. I know you use sticks and things like that, but like, how do you think, Anthony, the fact that you're in an electric wheelchair has affected your wrestling fandom at times, if that makes sense?
Uh, like, because obviously at the end of the show, sometimes the listeners will go into the first couple of rows and sign stuff and things like that. And I think because I'm in a wheelchair and because of how most of the arenas are set up, we normally either right at the back or like to the side. So, so, so the point is, sometimes we might we might miss the the int the intimate moments, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a very
Does
good
that
point.
make sense?
Yeah. Any follow-up, Dom?
I would say, yeah. I mean, obviously, for me, especially if you get invited to the media scrums, because normally the WWE team they come up and get you. You're thinking, right, how am I going to get down to this space? For me, getting out of a venue in general, it takes a lot of thinking. So I'm like, okay, well, do I wait? I usually wait 10, sometimes 15 minutes for crowds to clear to get out of a music space or out of a venue anyway. But when they do the media stuff, it's usually like, okay, well, okay, so I'm because it's a last minute thing. They come up and they say, right, come on, and you just like, okay, how am I going to do this? Okay, let's. Where am I? Where's the media space, that kind of stuff. So it's very much like, yeah, I very much empathize with that. Usually you do miss certain moments, particularly when you're working. You do miss certain moments, but there's also the inconvenience. I guess I'm not trying to say I understand people, there's thousands of people in these spaces. Of course, they need to get out. But yeah, I usually have to wait 10, 15 minutes to get out. Obviously, I've got to factor in for me wet floors, anything like that, drinks on the floor. These are obviously hazards that could impede my ability to, if I fall over, it's not, 100% likely I'm going to get back up again. So, I have to factor those things in. Yeah.
I don't, sorry, so I've just got a quick question. So, Dom, what I was saying earlier about how people can sometimes walk in front of me when I'm trying to move around. Is it a similar case for you? 'Cause I know sometimes people can be quite intoxicated at these
That's
Oh
a
shows.
yeah.
really good
Oh,
question.
yeah. It's why it's so great being on a chat with you guys, because you get some really interesting questions to think about. Dude, if I told you some of the experiences I've had with drunk people, you would be you'd probably laugh, but you'd also probably cry. Drunk people are the most obviously they're uninhibited, so they
Oh
usually
yeah.
say the weirdest stuff, some of the meanest stuff, but also, yeah, they don't care where they're walking and who they're, sort of swaying in front of. So I empathized and I listened to you when you said that, and that is a big, big problem. Probably one of the bigger ones of going out into these
Mm.
events is
Yeah.
drunk people who are just trying to get to where they want to go, and they don't really care about who's around them. Of course, again, there's also that sort of extra emotional side of things where because they're uninhibited, they don't necessarily think about what they're saying sometimes. So you get some pretty horrible comments from people when
Yeah,
people are hammered.
yeah, like people can be very unfiltered when they're inebriated.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. I've had some good ones as well. I've had the
Yeah,
I've had the mean ones, and then you know I've had women of all ages like you look quite attractive actually.
okay.
I like your beard.
I
So I
love
get some of
that.
that too. I
But
get that. I get some of that too. Some people think it's really condescending when that happens. I'm like, oh, thank you, love. That's very
Oh, I'm
kind.
just
You know
okay,
what I
used to
mean?
it now. It's
uh,
like go with the roll with the punches, go with the flow, if you know what I
Roll
mean.
with it exactly.
okay.
You know all about that. Roll with the punches.
I I've had people try to kiss me before.
What?
Not on the lips or anything like that.
Oh,
But just,
kiss. I thought you said kick. For some reason, I thought you said kick. Sorry, man.
I thought you said kiss. I was
no,
like, let's
no,
go.
kiss, kiss.
X-rated. Let's do this.
Yeah,
No, I'm kidding.
explain.
No, like some people are kind of, you're like cutie, and they kiss you
Oh,
on
yeah.
the cheek.
Right. Yeah. I see what you're saying now, man. I've had that as
It
well.
made, it
Oh,
Like,
made, it made me feel really uncomfortable.
yeah,
I've had I've had people come up to me in the street and full on it's only happened to me twice, but yeah, full on like you know
I mean,
yeah,
it's only happened to
jump on me.
it's only happened to me once. But it would be like if it was the other way around, it would be me. I would get going to creep.
exactly
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
That's a
absolutely,
very
yeah,
good point.
absolutely.
No,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
good
absolutely. If
point.
some of the
Yeah.
things like I said, I've had people full on try and tongue me in the street. You know what I mean? It's like if that happened to anybody else, or if it was the other way around, you know.
Mm.
Obviously, that this is a much wider conversation and a much deeper philosophical conversation about the state of our society.
Mm.
But yeah, interesting point. Yeah, thanks for bringing that, Anthony. Yeah, but really interesting point, isn't it? These
It,
things are funny to a
Mm.
point, but then actually, if you go deeper into it, it's very interesting discussion.
Mm. It's
sorry,
funny. I had a video that's been, I don't know how, but the algorithm's been loving it. You know, the pieces to camera that I used to do before I
yeah,
started the podcast.
yeah.
And I did one of like 10 things you never say to a disabled person. And I got this comment recently, which is like, I would never think that this was from an able-bodied person. It's like the one that I put is, how do you go to the toilet? I'm like, you wouldn't ask someone else that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, next time somebody asks me that, I'll do what I do when someone goes, "Can you have sex?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, would you like me to show you?" You know, just
Well done.
no.
I like
Uh,
that.
there you go. You know,
You do
um,
have to come back with that stuff like that sometimes, though, don't you? Because otherwise, it does go into what's the word? Anthony, you're good with words. It goes into
Intrusive.
in, yeah,
Is,
exactly that.
is that the right
yeah.
word, Dom? Intrusive.
Yeah,
Intrusive.
I think
Yeah,
so. Intrusive and evasive. Yeah, I mean the same. It's the same meaning. Yeah, it's just very evasive, isn't it? It's very personal, and I think people sort of they're curious, and this is kind of what you have to think people are curious, but equally there's a time and a place. I wouldn't necessarily, and this is where it comes back to the alcohol thing and the
yeah,
people
yeah,
being
yeah.
drunk. Normally, people would sit down with you, maybe they'd have a cup of tea with you, and they'd ask you those questions. But when they're hammered and at a bar or a club, they're like, "Hey, you, could you have sex then? What's going on?" They don't do it in that voice because that sounds like, an
They're
old
looking,
No,
they're
it just
looking for
old
sounded
you.
like a
dude's trying
drunk
to have sex with
Yorkshireman.
me.
It just sounded like a drunk
Yeah.
Yorkshireman, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, I get a few of those, a few of them, a few drunk Yorkshiremen. They ask me some strange questions, but yeah. So it's one of those things, but it is very evasive. I've had some very, as you guys will have done as well, very evasive questions, and it's kind of like, well, how do I respond to this? Do you know what I'm saying?
So we don't get
Um,
in trouble as well, because the
mm,
amount of
mm,
times that it's been twisted on me when I've responded, I don't know if you've ever
right,
had
okay,
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
very interesting, yeah.
Mm.
yeah. On foot. This is a much deeper conversation, but I feel like that happens a lot in modern day society. People love to
Mm.
twist your
Yeah.
responses.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, like I mentioned that the my reply earlier, my sort of go-to reply of like, would you like me to show you? You've got to remember, like, I'm a very, very happy, I'm in a very, very happy, loving relationship. It's been a long time since I've used those responses. I'm not sure I could do that now in this day and age and not get into trouble. Obviously, for me, it's more of a comedic thing. Oh, well, if
yeah.
you're going to ask me that question, well, I might as well just show you. You know what I mean? You know. But obviously, if I did that, or if perhaps in these days, if I did that, it would be wouldn't be so funny. I'd probably get into some trouble. So
Mm.
it's funny how times change, isn't it?
Yeah,
Mm. Definitely. Any follow-up, Ant?
and no, not really. Tom, I think Dom summed it up perfectly there. So no,
Sorry, boys, my TV's turned itself on. I'm just going to do this. Sorry, my Phantom TV just turned itself on.
That's all right.
it's all
Don't
Uh,
right,
worry.
mate.
so, I'm curious to talk about, because I got asked this question the other day. Do you guys think you would be a wrestling fan without your disability?
Hmm. I'll let Anthony ask this one first. Yeah, I need some time to think. Unless do you want to go first, dude? I
I,
just need some
I,
time to think on
I, I
this
was,
one.
I was gonna say, I was gonna say, do you want to go first, Tom? Because I need time to think as well. But
That's
Okay, yeah,
good.
all right, I'll go. I'll go first. Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, you'll remember the story. The reason why, probably one of the reasons why I would attribute deal with my disability the way that I do is probably
Mm,
down to watching guys like Mick Foley. And obviously he's not a disabled person, but he's certainly given himself some health issues. With
mm,
the way that he wrestled. So like I said, watching a guy limping around, but still becoming a world champion was massive for me growing up. You know what I mean? Mankind Mick Foley was one of the first people that I was like, wow, okay, if he can do this, then if he can survive in the world and
mm,
thrive, then maybe I can as well. That's why I've always dealt with pain the way I've dealt with it. Obviously, Mankind is, Mick Foley was always associated with dealing with pain very well. And I think as a kid, it really helped me, watching those matches, in hospital beds or whatever, dealing with pain, because I saw this guy,
mm,
you know, at least the perception was. Of course, he wasn't in as much pain as perhaps he was making out to be, but the perception was that he was in a lot of pain and he was going through these challenges, and so that made it a lot easier. So I would say I'd probably still be a wrestling fan. I guess I would have discovered it in the same way, which is watching it on TV. Although I was doing my physio and kind of looking for, I was doing for physio and kind of looking for something to focus on,
Hmm.
and kind of engage with. So maybe I don't know. I would say yes, I'd still be a wrestling fan, but of course, how do I know? Because I've only ever known this life. So
Hmm.
but I would say so, yeah. But I think having a disability has made me respond to difference in the way that I do. Obviously you could see behind me things, and also I've talked about it so many times, characters like Mankind, Cactus Jack, Mick Foley, of course, the mastermind behind those,
Hmm.
the Wyatt Six, Bray Wyatt, anything different or alternative, you know, has really, has always really grabbed me. People that look different, people that act different, darker characters, people that have been through stuff, that's what really, resonates with me and kind of helps me, I think.
Hmm. What about you, my friend?
I think I would be, but I think because I spent a lot of time in hospital over the years because of multiple operations. I used to take a lot of wrestling DVDs, so I don't think I would be
So did I,
as
oddly.
big as big as a fan as I am today. But I think I still would have became a fan. If anything. I probably would have at least tried wrestling school.
Oh, really? That's really cool, man. What about if we move on? I'm just going to answer this question because I'm curious to sort of talk about my answer for a second, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
Like, I definitely think I'd be a wrestling fan because it's a family tradition in my family, if that makes sense. My dad's a casual fan now, but a fan. My sister's a fan. My granddad was a fan. So I definitely think I'd be a fan. I just don't know if I'd be as much of a fanatic because I don't know if I'd have as much time, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes sense to me
Yeah, it
anyway.
does. Yeah. Yeah, it
Mm,
makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
mm. What about content creation, guys? I know we did a full sort of panel on content creation in this and disability, what, 2, 3 years ago?
It was a
Yeah.
long time ago.
I
Could
wasn't
be
living
even
here. I know
more.
that for a fact.
No, it wasn't.
Uh, but what about content creation? Is there any sort of downsides to Dom's talks about the media scrums and things like that? Is there any sort of downsides to sort of being a wrestling fan and a content creator with a disability, or any upsides even?
Uh,
Do you want to go
y-
first, Tom, or should I go?
well, yeah, you go first, man. You go first.
Well, for me, I struggle. To, I find I have to do multiple takes because I might stammer a little bit, or I
Mm,
might not speak as clearly as I can do, and then, uh, but and then I get paranoid that that people will not understand me. So I end up having to do 50 takes.
mm. What about you, Dom?
Yeah, man. I mean, for me, I know that, and I say this with all respect to the WWE teams. I know that I've probably missed opportunities, because of my disability, because it's
Mm,
at the end of the day, uh, that obviously to accommodate. I think sometimes, especially in the media scrums, perhaps it's difficult to get, for me, because I need a bit of extra time. So I think
mm,
I've probably missed out on some of the earlier. Obviously I have done them now, but some of the earlier ones I probably missed out on because they were thinking, right, we need to get this done quickly. And obviously I take a few extra minutes to get down. But then that said, I don't know that for a fact. I think actually geographically, I've missed out on things because they've said, oh, well, we thought you were a bit too far. We thought you were a bit too far away, being in East Yorkshire. And I've had to go back and say, no, I'm willing to travel, which has then obviously led me to
yeah.
opportunities because I've had to say it in the first place. And I think because, they've met me, they see the disability, they know where I am geographically, maybe they kind of go, oh, well, Dom, it's a bit of a bit of a faff. But actually there's that assumption, and that's what I don't like in everyday life and in the work that I do, that there's an assumption that I can't do it or that I don't want to do it. And actually it couldn't be further from the truth. So I would say advantages, again, this space, being able to sit down, being able to be comfortable in my nice comfy chair, and do things this way, even, to have this opportunity is always wonderful to catch up with you guys. So I think there's some advantages to that, because, TNA, for example, who I would always, I would encourage you all to work with TNA because they're great, of course, like WWE. That's the other thing that needs to be said. WWE only work with people with really good numbers. I think that's the other thing. They've said that. They've said that to me numerous times. Get your numbers up, and then we'll look at, things down the line. Obviously, that you've also got to factor in locality. If they're in the UK, then we have a better chance of getting stuff. If it's international, WrestleMania, stuff like that, there are content creators from the UK that go out to WrestleMania, but the numbers need to be big. You need to have a website. You need to have not just a YouTube channel, but a website and a brand that is, and you can do that. Going back to your point, you could do that from your computer at home. You could do that. And that's one of the advantages. The disadvantages, like we said, are that people make assumptions, so you have to work really hard to kind of beat those back. And fortunately, again, we've had some wonderful experiences after doing that. But it's sad that we have to do that. We have able-bodied X, Y, and Z content creator, or X, Y, and Z journalist from X, Y, and Z platform doesn't have to do that, whereas we have to work hard and extra to prove ourselves, to push ourselves, and that I think is, it builds character in all of us. I would say all of us have a strength of character, but it's I don't want to use the word unfair because I don't want to sound like I'm, but it does suck. It does suck that we then have to go that extra mile. And Anthony's talked about this before. Again, preparing interviews, even conversations. You've talked about this too. That we do have to go the extra mile. But then, you've both done very, very well in the space. So it's a testament to your work ethic and your drive to so I think that would be the disadvantages, people's assumptions. But the advantages is, unfortunately, in the modern world, if your content is good and your work is good, you could do anything from anywhere, I would say, personally. Yeah.
What about you, my friend?
I would agree with everything Dom said. By the way, I apologize, Dom, for coughing when you were talking. No offense.
Totally cool, man. Life happens.
Don't worry, man. You're allowed to go. I'm coughing now. You're allowed to cough. It's all good. We're on Tom Talks Rubbish. It's cool. It's chilled.
Oh, this is just chill. Like,
exactly.
To be honest, guys, when Anthony pitched me this was going to be more of just like I want to hang out with my buddies. I know we talk individually, but like we haven't had one of these in like we said, 2-3 years.
Yeah, no. So I'm buzzed to be here, man.
You know what Don said about not wanting people to think that you're not interested or you don't care. I suffer with that quite a lot because it will be a couple of weeks or something from the last time I upload or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I feel guilty for not uploading anything. But at the same time, I want the quality to be good.
Yeah,
I think I struggle with that as well because, like, particularly with the podcast, since I've moved, as much as I can record late and things, and I will if somebody needs it, but like I will sort of say, look, 6, 7 o'clock, 8, 9 o'clock is my cutoff for comfort and stuff. Because I don't know about you guys. If I fall out of my routine too much with my disability, it affects me too many days after. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But I pushed that boat out for certain interviews. So at the beginning of the year, I did a 10-minute, 15-minute phone call with the Hardy Boys at about 11 p.m. And I was okay, it's the Hardy Boys. I'm going to do that. Do you know what I mean?
There's
Matt and
certain
Jeff Hardy.
that you would definitely push it out for.
Yeah. So that, but there are some where, I won't, especially now, I won't do that, for, like you said, the comfort thing. But I think for certain things, that's definitely the latest I've done one. That's the
Mm.
latest I've done one is 11 p.m. on a phone call with the Hardys. You know, yeah, that I think was a special thing because that was a bucket list one for me,
Oh,
So,
definitely.
um,
And like, don't get me wrong, if the big one I'm working on currently, I don't want to say because it's close, but I'll tell you
Don't,
guys.
don't don't say it. Don't say it. If like I'm real superstitious, I don't know if Anthony feels like this, but I'm like I'm Emma gets really annoyed at me because I'll be like I'm really excited about something, and then she'll be like, "What is it? What is it?" I'm like, "I can't tell you because if I tell you, it won't happen." And then she's
No, and
like, "God
I'm
damn it!"
exactly like that as well.
I
Yeah. So go
my
on.
my mentality is don't say it publicly because if it doesn't happen, for me personally, if I say it and it doesn't happen, I just feel like wow, that made me look bad now because I've hyped something up that isn't coming. So
Yeah, that's true. That's very
Mm,
true, man. That's very true.
mm.
One thing we touched on during that content creation episode was feeling like we're equals in this space, is the way that I'll phrase that. So has that changed for you guys at all? Do you feel more equal in this space as a content creator now?
we
That, go on, Anthony. You go first.
with all due respect, Tom, we are never going to be equal because there's certain things that we can't. There's certain things that I can't do, that Dom can't do, that you can't do, that
Mm.
other people can do. So we're never going to be equal in a certain sense, but we just have to do the best that we can.
Mm.
Yeah. So there are things that I admire about each of you, for example, but like Anthony's ability to take a conversation and just have a conversation is great. Just be in the conversation is a wonderful thing. Your Tom, your pre-planning is great. Your research is great. You know what I mean? So you've got that skill. I think for me, having realizing that I didn't you couldn't just do what we're doing, and I respect that you guys, you guys are in different phases. You got to remember Anthony has got, thousands more subscribers than all of us.
Oh yeah.
For me as a journalist, because I'm not a traditional content creator in the same way that you guys are, I realized that you can't just have a YouTube channel. This is one of the things that I would say. Obviously, there are people with thousands more subscribers and thousands more views than me. So this is just my take on it. Like, I couldn't just have a YouTube channel. You need a website. You
Mm.
you need features, writers to make it legit. This is the thing. I think for me, you know, that's what I've learned is that as a journalist, not just as a strict content creator, you've got to have multiple streams. That's
Mm.
why we're on the media scrums. That's why we can have a conversation wherever it leads with WWE, AEW, and crucially TNA, who we work with regularly all the time. Is because we have these platforms, and I think it's really important for content creators, who are watching this. I would say the more you can use your time and energy to build websites, to build the brand of what you do, not just beyond YouTube, because everybody's got a YouTube channel. Not everybody can be as cool as Anthony Talks or Tom Talks Rubbish. Not everybody can
Mm.
have the niche that you guys do, which makes it work. But I would say for anybody who wants to people tell me all the time, people ask me all the time, how do you get WWE interviews? How do you work with these people? And it's purely because I've expanded beyond
Yeah.
YouTube, and I have we have contributors all over the world. But that's because I'm a journalist, and I want to make sure the distinction is clear. I'm a journalist, not a content creator. Whereas you guys you guys have that, and have that. But I think we all have our skill set. Like I said, I admire each of you for your, again, Tom, particularly for your research, Anthony, for your ability to just carry and let a conversation flow. It really is a testament to you guys. I've gone off topic, but it really is a testament to both of you. You've got to have skills as a content creator, and it doesn't necessarily matter if you've got a disability, because again, people don't even know some people don't even know, and they've been working with me for 10, 15 years, and they've
Yeah.
only met me like this because it doesn't need to, because it doesn't matter. So you can do what you want to do, but you have to be dynamic with it. You can't just do, if you want to do these things, if you want to work with WWE, if you want, you need numbers. You need numbers. That's what they care about. You've seen it because that's why they're doing all the Saudi deals and all that. Let's not go into that.
Yeah.
But like, that's what they want. If your numbers are good, they will work with you. If they're not, they won't, because they don't need to. So this is what I'm saying. You have to build your brand, and you could do that, like we said, crucially. You can do that from your gaff. You could do that from your house. Sorry, that's a very Yorkshire way of saying
No,
house.
but I
You could do that
understood.
from
Yeah.
your, yeah, you could do that from your space, but just don't, again, you've got to work. You've got to work
Yeah,
so hard. You've got to work so hard. Well, yeah,
I don't mean to cut you off. You have to play to your strengths.
I
Like,
think that's the other thing.
absolutely.
Yeah.
like for me, I'm doing all of this from my bed. Obviously, I sometimes do it in my wheelchair, but most of the time I'm doing this on my bed. So it's not about the equipment or the setup really. Obviously, you still need it to be usable. But at the end of the day, as long as you know what you're good at and what you're not, that is the most important thing.
A
Like
hundred,
like,
100%.
like some people are good at live streaming. I'm crap at live streaming, so I
Mm.
don't do it.
Mm. Well,
Yeah,
yeah, if I could
yeah.
speak, that'd be really helpful. I understand what you're both saying completely there. Like, I've always said to Dom, like, Dom's got the numbers and Dom deserves all his success. Same with you, Anthony. Like, but I am always curious to know something you brought up, Anthony, in our last conversation was feeling like sometimes we get more things because of our disability. Are you still there, my friend?
I am, but the one thing I do want to say is, like, you can't do anything about it if people say they're gonna come on just because you have a disability, and you can't really change people's minds. You just have to make the best of every situation.
Mm?
Yeah,
What I mean is, like, say if somebody said I'm gonna come on, but you suspect they're doing it for the right reasons, still take it, but just be conscious of the fact the reason that you think that they're doing it.
Mm. I understand what you're saying completely there. What about
yeah.
you, Dom? Is there any sort of are you were never really in the same boat as me and Anthony, were you? You sort of let the work speak for itself, didn't you?
Well,
And you
yeah,
never sort of
yeah.
got caught in that trap.
Well, that the brand was never. I mean, Soundsphere. People still have no idea that for years, because it's a much bigger thing. There's a lot of people involved in Soundsphere, a lot of freelancers, a lot of wonderful people involved in building Screensphere, most recently WrestleSphere as well. Sam, Andy. It was always meant to be bigger than me by design because more opportunities could happen for more people that way.
Mm.
I think going back to your point about the numbers, yeah, I've had the numbers in the past, which has got me to media scrums. But if I had, eh, it's one of those things. I try not to focus on that too much because if I had the right numbers to be in, to be in WrestleMania this last year, I would have been doing that. So it's one of those things. I try and not get too bogged down on that. I want quality, and I'm aware that that's what they want. I'm aware that that's what they want, but I try and focus more on, you know, um stuff I enjoy now, which is why you're just seeing these 2 or 3
Yeah.
minutes of me just chilling on the channel because I'm less focused now on the numbers. I'm at a different phase in my life. Obviously, my focus now is on my mental health work as a counselor and that kind of stuff, even though I still do the odd interview here and there. But that is what WWE want. That is what AEW want. They want the numbers, and I'm less focused on that. I what I want is, um I'm just really I'm really proud that I can sit in these spaces with you guys and talk about these things, and have had an impact on people, and obviously, try and motivate another, other content creators to build on what they want to do. Again, it is about numbers, it is about brand, and Soundsphere has always been a vehicle for me, but crucially, going back to your point, other people as well. It just so happens that I have a disability, and then when people see me go into a room, people usually ask me, and they're actually more interested in my story than they are about talking about their own, because they maybe had 3 or 4 hours of interviews of people asking them the same stuff with the same types of people. So I think it plays into, it's a strength in a lot of ways, having a disability in this space, because you're different. You are different, and I think play to your strengths, like
That was
exactly like you've
beautiful.
both said, and Anthony has said crucially in this conversation. That's exactly why he has the thousands of subscribers. That's exactly why people go up on his show. But then if you look at yourself, Tom, yes, you're right. Sometimes, I mean, you've had interviews with SRS, you've had interviews with, with so many content creators and journalists that other people don't get. And that is, there's so many reasons why that can be. It can be persistence. It can be, it can be multiple things. But perhaps it is that. Perhaps it is because you're different in the space. You have your disability. You talk openly about it, and because again, I had all those interviews in COVID, because it was COVID, because people were
Yeah.
sitting down doing nothing. And that's why a lot of those interviews happened. That's where our WWE relationship started as well. So I think you've had these interviews out of COVID, and that's a real thing. That's a big deal,
It's
man.
still
Because,
nuts that people are
well,
saying.
yeah, but it's nuts, particularly because they don't do interviews. They don't do any now.
Mm.
And that's what you got to remember. You got Wheezy Blonde and all these other people. They don't do a lot of interviews, and it's great that you're getting them. But yeah, again, going back to what Anthony said, I think that's going to be the key point and the key focus point of this conversation is we can moan and we can complain. Oh, we've got a disability. People overlook us. People don't give us opportunities, right? And there will be some people that do that. There will be some people out there that look at us and go, I don't want to do that, da, 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 or I don't want to work with that person because people are maybe scared or they're anxious, they don't know how to talk to us or whatever, right? But do we want to be working with those people? Not really. I
Oh,
don't want to work with people that have those perceptions, and they are out there. They are out there. We know
yeah.
that, right? Fine. So what are we going to do? Are we going to moan? Are we going to complain? And this is what I mean. I would perfectly understand anybody that does want to complain and does want to moan, because you can be really hard some days, as you guys both know.
Yeah.
But you guys are really good examples of people that do the thing. You do the thing. You figure out how you're going to do it. You play to your strengths, and you don't let your differences define who you are and who you want to be and where you want to go. And I really admire that about you guys. And I think there are some wonderful examples out in the world of people that do that in everyday life, people with disabilities, differences. And I really respect that about you guys and about those people.
And I also think sometimes having a difference or a disability, whatever word you feel comfortable using, can be an advantage because, as Tom said, when you're interviewing wrestlers or whatever, we, because I would say sometimes having a disability can give you more life experience, if you know what I
Mm.
mean, and that can sometimes help you to ask different style of questions and ask more, I don't want to say personal questions, but you know what I mean, like the person behind the character in a wrestling sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree
yeah.
with that. I agree with
Yeah,
that.
100%, 100%. But that's the thing. Just on a final note on the things that WWE and AEW want, that doesn't mean that we can slack off. Yeah, that's the other.
No.
That's it. We have to work twice as hard, than some people, but we still have to have the right backdrop. We have to have the numbers. We have to look professional. We have to be professional. We have to ask good questions. That we don't get to skip on that.
Well,
That's what I would say is is
well,
is absolutely use the disability. Well, use the disability, obviously as an interest point and as a brand, part of your brand. But we do not get to skip on quality of work and effort, because we
well,
still have to put that in.
Mm.
what do you mean by the right backdrop? The right backdrop. Sorry, Tom, I'm
No,
taking over
no,
again.
No,
Sorry.
I'm genuinely
no.
curious about that as well, man.
No. Right. Okay. So, for example, if I'm interviewing, let's have a look. If I'm interviewing Damien Priest, right, and I've got him on. Obviously, I was sat with him, in a WB hotel. If I'm doing it over Zoom, my black backdrop is going up, right? Because I don't as much as I love this, and this is my room for myself. This
Mhm.
doesn't, and obviously I've got wrestling figures and everything. I'm a fan. But in that space, in this world, I am a professional. So my screen goes up, my counseling screen that I use for my clients, and I do. And when I interview musicians that I respect, that goes up because I am a professional in the space. I am not a fan. I am equal, and this is one of the things I really struggle with regards to some of the since we've moved into film and TV. Um, a lot of people are like, look, they glamorize these, and obviously celebrities are great, and it's lovely that they have all this success and everything. But when you're a journalist and you're interviewing, you're equal,
Yeah.
right? And people platform these people, but you have to look equal. Right now, because I am here as a wrestling fan, all of my silly things and my balloon that Emma bought me, which is still up after 6 months, when I passed my degree recently, that's staying up because that's part of, it's part of my fun
Yeah.
that I have in my space, right? But do I want Damien Priest to see a balloon floating around in my background? Probably not. You see what I mean? So you've got to think about these things. You've got to look at these things and how things look. And I think it's different for someone because I mean, again, we can't argue with Anthony's success because again, he's got the subscribers and he's got the followers, and I think the bed and the chair works for Anthony, and I think the blurred background works for you, Tom. But I do think that this is what people miss. The people that message me, or I'm sure they message you. How do you do this? How do
Yeah.
you get here? How do you work with these people? They only want to work with people that know what they're doing, that are good at what they do, and that look professional. I do not, do you see what I mean? So we don't get, and that's the thing, that's the sad reality of it is it'd be nice to have a break because obviously we've got to maybe work harder to move into a building, to get into a building, but people don't, people want quality. At the end of the day, these organizations are looking for numbers, they're looking for quality, and we don't get to skip on that just because we've got a disability or a
It's
difference.
like
We
as
still have to have
well,
that
and
quality.
one final point before we look at wrapping this up. You mentioned that during COVID, I had a lot of the bigger creators and things like that. Yes, I did. But but since COVID's ended, I've had to work to get the bigger creators back on, if that makes sense. And like keep what's the word? Anthony, you're good, but like keep stepping, as Dustin Rhodes would say, and keep pushing because
Like,
like
like, you mean like keeping in contact like every couple of months to
that
say
sort of thing, yeah. But
hello?
like
Yeah.
also like people think like because I'm not gonna call this person out, but there's a couple of people that do message me like, "How did you get so and so?" And I'm like, because I'm persistent, like you said, and because I will email every so often, and because the reason I got Wheezy Blonde to pull the character back to pull the curtain back was because she'd had some health struggles and I didn't just message her following up on the interview. I genuinely messaged to sort of say, "How are you? Are you okay?" sort of thing. And that same with Chris. Like he reached out to me. I reached out to him when he had the baby. When he had, I can't remember if it was baby number one or baby number two, but basically I reached out to him and said, like, congratulations. And that's when he said to me, "We'll set the interview up." Does that make sense, Anthony?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes all the sense in the world because
Treating these creators like humans, I think, has been a big point for me. I don't know about you, man.
yeah, exactly, mate. And I also think it's important. Don't don't just do it because you think you're gonna get something out of it. Because if you do, people are gonna see right through it. If you're genuinely interested in how somebody's doing, they can tell when you're doing it because you care, and when you're doing it because you think you're gonna get something. And I think nowadays people are more people are more suspicious. People are more suspicious of people and what their motivations are.
I would agree. I would agree with that.
Maybe
As we
I'm
wrap this up, boys. Sorry, Anthony.
I was gonna say maybe I'm wrong, but
No, I
that'd
No,
be
don't think
my
you
guess.
are.
I agree, and I think it's worth going because I certainly go a few minutes over with you guys, like
Oh, no worries.
because I do think this is it. I do think this is important, and going back to what Anthony said there, you're right. We live in different times now. People are more suspicious, and it's so lovely to hear, Tom, that you messaged, Chris and Wheezy Blonde and all these other people because that's what's important. There's so many people out there that just want to get the hits and and again, like I say, let's be real, that's what people are looking for, but you can be genuine with this. That's why Chris Van Vliet has all the numbers of all the wrestlers that he works with,
Mm.
and that's why all these successful creators, they connect with people because they're not just about the numbers, they're not just about they're not just trying to get something out of somebody, and the genuity, bloody I should, that
I
genuine
know
nature,
what you mean, yeah.
genuity. Yeah,
But
yeah.
then yeah,
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly what you're both saying, and particularly what Anthony's saying there. Yeah, people are suspicious, and it is a different time, and we've got we you have to be genuine. I love the fact that one of my favorite wrestlers of all time is Raven Scott Levy, and um, when we did the interview, he messaged, he said, text me, and occasionally now we text and I check in because he's just about to release a documentary that's coming out. And I
Mm.
said, congratulations. And he texts me back. And I was like, and then Tom Latimer, who, former NWA champion, he's from the UK. And we text and he's a wonderful guy. And
Mm.
these people are just people. They're just humans. And that's what I would say to some of these journalists that I speak to, particularly within film and TV. They're just people with different jobs and different opportunities. But fundamentally, at the end of the day, they just want to have a good day, and they maybe want to be asked about their day. They don't want to be like, oh my god, do you see what I'm saying? You've just got to be real with these
Mm.
people, and that's how opportunities and things happen because you're genuine, and this is exactly what you guys are talking about.
Mm.
but
I think, sorry,
uh,
mate.
sorry, Tom. My problem is sometimes I feel like I don't want to bother the person too
Thank
much. So,
you. Was just
so,
going to say
so
that,
it's like,
yes.
so it's like finding that balance. I'm not like constantly messaging them,
Mm.
but not like only messaging them when you want something.
Definitely. Like, that's why, to peel the curtain back. Do you know who Benville is of Wrestling Life, boys?
Honestly, no, no,
Yeah, I know
no,
Ben. I've seen his interviews.
no disrespect, but oh yeah, I do, yeah, I do, yeah, I do, yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
You would know him as Benville Wrights on Twitter, my friend.
yeah, yeah,
Mm. So that's why me and him get along so well, because I will send him an email occasionally and just be like, how's the family? How's the kids? Do you know what I mean? And just be like, how's the family? How's the kids? Like, that's why me and you are still close, Dom. That's why me and you are still close, Han, because we check in. We don't just go like, Dom, can you get this for me? Anthony, help. Does that make sense? I think that's why we're all still close. Would you agree with
yeah,
that?
yeah.
I would absolutely agree. Yeah.
That makes all the sense, and I think sometimes social media can be very transactional, and even I've fallen into this trap
Oh, right,
sometimes.
yeah.
I do sometimes treat it like a transactional rather than a friendship. I don't do it purposely, but I find myself doing it sometimes, and I get annoyed at myself for doing it.
Mm. So to wrap this up, boys, we're not going to do generic questions because you two have done that segment about 4 times now, and I bet you're bored of doing that segment now. But to wrap this up, I do still want to talk about what is a piece of content you both want to be remembered for.
You go first, Anthony.
Uh, can can I just say the podcast as a whole, or is that cheating in your?
No, Tom, do you agree? Like, do you think he's cheating, or I don't think he is?
No, 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 no. I think for me, I have different bits of content from you guys that I think is really cool. I think that for me, though, I would say some of the WWE stuff I've done just because I always wanted to do that. That was a
Mm.
goal of mine when I got into journalism. Interviewing Mick Foley, Ric Flair, when as I've told this story, but he couldn't understand my accent because we were doing it over the phone.
Oh yeah.
Um, Damien Priest talking about metal with Damien, that was cool. Rhea Ripley, of course, she's become a global superstar now, so that's been really cool. But for me, yeah, just Mick Foley was just, it was a dream come true. Jeff Hardy, Matt Hardy, that was obviously, that's very recent or relatively recent. So yeah, I would say just using a platform that I built in my bedroom
Mm.
and that has grown to something that can work with these companies and brands, and also provide other opportunities. That's what I would say I'm most proud of. I think in terms of interviews, in terms of stuff I'm really proud of, I would say wrestling wise, probably Raven, because I grew up loving Raven. Eric Rowan as well, obviously now a member of the Wyatt Six. That was cool just because I love that, the whole lore around the Wyatts and Bray Wyatt and everything. So those are a few, I would say. There's probably one that as soon as we put down this call, I'll be like, but yeah, those are some examples.
I never do this, but as this is more of a discussion rather than an interview, I'm going to give two of my own, and they both involve you two, and which is quite funny. It's going to be and it's none of my content either. It's going to be our wobbling about and rocking out, Dom, our most recent one. Do when I reached out to you and said, I don't think I'm that person anymore. Would you have me back on?
Yeah,
And
man.
because I really am not the same person as when we recorded. Was that 4 years ago?
Yeah, it was around that. Yeah, it was
Hmm.
around that. I
And
get. Go on, yeah.
sorry, man, continue.
No, I was just saying that I think in terms of meaningful stuff, just quickly, I think in terms of meaningful stuff, I think, in terms of professional stuff, again, we put those interviews in there, but the stuff that we did on Give Me a Whole Yeah, the disability stuff, I think I've said this before on record on one of these chats, it's probably the thing I will be, from an emotional standpoint, from like
Hmm.
a deep connection standpoint, probably that one, because I
Hmm.
think it shows how close we are, how much we all connected in this space. We're three people from three different parts of the country, that connected
We need to try and
through
do
this.
something in person, guys. I'd love to
Yeah,
do
one
that.
day, one day, I
Yeah,
would
one
absolutely
day.
love that. Yeah, yeah, but that's what I mean. Isn't that beautiful that we came together? We didn't know each other. We came together through this space, and we're all friends, and we can all sit and do this for over an hour. I think that's a beautiful thing. So
Hmm.
that's what I think on an emotional level, some those chats that we've had about disability,
Hmm.
and
And it was the
wrestling,
first time,
wrestling stuff.
going back to that Dom interview, that was the first time I'd really opened up about my mental health struggles. Like I don't know if I can say it on YouTube, but like my taking my own life attempts and things like that.
Mm.
It's the first time I
Yeah,
really opened up about that. And the second thing, because Anthony handled it so well, is the clip that you posted about podcasting saving my life. You know what I'm talking about, right, man?
yeah, yeah,
Like that clip, I share out to people all the time. I'm like, if you want to know anything about my journey and why podcasting is so important to me, please watch this clip. It's like 3 minutes, 4 minutes, man.
yeah.
Just please watch this clip.
I appreciate the compliment. I don't think I really did anything. I basically just set the table, so to speak, and let you go.
Let me ask Dom, have you watched that clip, Dom?
I will have watched it in the past. Yeah, obviously I need a refresher, so that's what I'm going to do after this interview. But I do think that going back to what Anthony was saying, setting the table is the real key to this world, and this is
Hmm.
why I would say that you are, such a great interviewer, Anthony. Is the ego and the need to be like in an interview setting? Obviously, when we're talking about what we're talking about, it's different, because we're talking about our story and we're sharing our story and we're sort of chatting as mates. But I think one of the great skills you have is a real ability to listen. There's less about, once you do that interview, once you set record, it's not about what you want and it's not about what you are. And it's not necessarily about sticking to a rigid group of questions. It's about letting that person be who they want to be. And I really admire that about you and setting the table. So you just say, "Oh, I don't really do anything." Actually, you do more than enough.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that,
More
man.
than enough, because it's not about, it's about listening and really they call it
Active listening.
Or not just doing it for a clip or for not just doing it for a clip, not just doing it for the hits, doing it to really be with someone in that moment. And that's what I really admire about you. And then Tom, just having you be so honest, in these interviews and really kind of that enthusiasm that you have, where you haven't become jaded and you haven't become tired of listening to people and tired of content creation. Your enthusiasm is what really stands out. So I think there's something to be really proud of there for both of you, really.
The last thing I want to say is about the reason why I say I think in 2020, as we record this in 2025, it's hard to be a podcaster nowadays because it's a very oversaturated market.
Yeah, I agree with that, Dom.
100%. So what makes you stand out? It goes back to what we were talking about.
I never know
figuring out
what
what
makes me stand out. I just enjoy these conversations.
And
I think
say you need to be honest, because I'm like, I watch some of my own stuff that sometimes, and I'm like, I don't think I'm actually that good at interviewing.
No, you
I,
are, man.
I'm just,
Really good.
right.
I,
I just want to interject really quickly. Your evidence is in your subscribers, man. I've always said this,
Mm.
right? We can do, like I said, I can do hours of interviews with people and get 200 views, right? But the evidence is in you do have the audience. That's what your evidence that you're doing a good job is, because and that's why WWE do things the way they do and AEW do. It's the numbers, because if the numbers are there, you're good at what you do, and that's the key.
Mm.
That is there's nothing else that needs to be said. That's why you're good at what you do, because people follow you and they engage with it. That's it, and that is the world we live in. And you are, of the three of us sitting here, we all have good. We all do good work, but I would the last one. You're the last person I would say needs to doubt themselves, because you do have that audience. You do have those followers.
I agree,
and
100%.
what I would say, I feel like nowadays it is easy to get jaded, but what you have to remember is that as long as you're enjoying what you're doing and you're happy with what you're doing, that is the most
Yeah,
important thing. And
yeah, 100.
Yeah,
if you're not hurting anybody, then why do you need to be worried or concerned?
because that's
Yeah,
my thing.
yeah,
I've always said this to, I think you and I have had this conversation, Dom. If I stopped enjoying this, the podcast goes away tomorrow. Yeah, it goes away tomorrow.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of the things, again, going back to where you stand out. I think it's your enthusiasm and your enjoyment of just storytelling, and also the work. You enjoy it, and that comes across. And that's why these people want to sit with you.
Mm.
It might be partly due to the disability, it might be partly due to that USP or unique selling point that you have there, but it's to do with your enthusiasm, because you really love talking to people, man. And that's
Mm.
that's why it works. That's why you have the followers you do and the audience you do.
As we wrap this up, guys, please promote yourself. Where can the good people find you, your work, etc.?
Go on, Anthony.
You can find me on YouTube. If you type in the Anthony podcast, I'll come up. But if you type in Anthony Talks One with the at symbol, my channel will come up. Even easier. If you want to follow me on socials, on most platforms, Anthony Talk number one. But on TikTok, it's just Anthony Talk.
What about you, Dom?
Right. Well, it's a good time to promote, because we've just sort of melded in everything that we've been working on for the last year. So WrestleSphere and ScreenSphere are now all part of SoundSphere again. So
Mm.
everything, film, TV content, wrestling content, games content is all back on SoundSphere. You can still go on WrestleSphere, you can still go on ScreenSphere. they're archived, so all the years worth of work that we've done is still there if you want to check out older interviews. But all the new stuff is going to be on Soundsphere. So that's SOUNDSPHEREMAG, soundspheremag.com. That's the website. And of course, on YouTube, Soundsphere Magazine, Twitter, Soundsphere Mag. So any variation of those. And if you just Google Soundsphere Magazine, it will come up. So SOUNDSPHERE mag or magazine.
It's well worth doing, guys. Two of the hardest working people in this space, but two of the nicest as well. So if you guys like this, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Tom Talks Rubbish on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter or X at Tom Talks Rubbish, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye now.
Thanks for watching this Tom Talks Rubbish conversation. Before you go, please make sure you leave a like on the video, share it around, and subscribe to Tom Talks Rubbish on YouTube, as well as follow Tom Talks Rubbish on Twitter/X.